as, well respected as Luis. So, only thing I would add to that is my personal experience with Luis. And it goes back a long time, probably longer than Luis wants to go back to. But I can remember when he was just a 15-year-old kid, been up to Tucson and training with us. And he had a great reputation as a young player. Everybody in Tucson always talked about this kid who was in goal down in Sierra Vista. And when he came up, I remember talking to his parents for the first time. And we ended up talking about him playing, I believe, baseball more than we did about him playing soccer of all things. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, if this guy was such a great baseball player, why is he in goal? And I think clearly his last 20 years of successful soccer shown why he chose soccer and how good he is at it. So with that said, we'll turn over everything to Luis. The way this will operate for everybody is Luis will talk for a little bit, and then we will have a question and answer scenario. If you would just use the chat button on the bottom of your Zoom, the host of the Zoom meeting today, Javi, will then unmute the person who can then ask directly to Luis their question. When you are not talking to everybody, just make sure to keep your microphones on mute so we clearly hear Luis and his fascinating story and all the things he has to say. So, hopefully Luis is ready to go.
Yes, thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. Yeah, so Dave, there's actually two coaches on the screen that I can see, unless there's other ones that I can't see, that were a huge part of my youth development. Todd Garlick and Dave Cosgrove. Dave Cosgrove was my coach for 2 years when at the time it was called Tucson United. And then Todd Garlick was my ODP coach for 3 years. And so I was able to not only experience both coaches, but I feel like it was the work that they put and the belief that they put into me that allowed me to reach some of the highest levels of soccer in this country. But there's actually one person that I can see on here that's really, really special. And I see Seth, but more than Seth, it's his dad, Tim. So Tim Nottingham is one of 4 guys, really 3 other guys that I grew up with. And if it wasn't for these guys, there's no way that I could be where I'm at today. And the reason I bring that up is because Dave mentioned I really was a baseball player. My dad's from Puerto Rico. My mom's from South Korea. And growing up, my dad put a lot of emphasis on me developing as a baseball player. And yet my story into soccer started with one of these guys. His name is Sean, who also played with us at Tucson United. And at 11 years old, Sean, after All-Star Baseball, decided to try out for this travel soccer team. And I went to the tryout with him. And after the first day, they basically cut me. But then what ended up happening is 2 weeks later, they sort of re-invited me back to the team as long as I was willing to play goalie. It was very apparent that my skills were not sufficient to be on the field. And yet the fact that I got to continue playing soccer with my friend Sean was really important to me. But what really made my story possible is these 3 other guys. So Sean, Tim, and Miguel. And it was the 4 of us from Sierra Vista, and we hung out almost every single day. And it wasn't that we hung out, we played soccer every single day. And so when I talk about whether it was soccer or baseball, those were really important moment my freshman year in high school. I had made the varsity baseball team, and the coach had said that it was really important that during this period, I put aside any sort of soccer pursuits. Now, the problem with that is, as I made the team, I got invited by the U14 national team to go to Costa Rica. And no one from my town, let alone even that area, had even been invited to something like that. So I thought, I have to do this. So I told the coach the next day, and he says, if you go on this trip, you're not going to be on varsity. But more than that, you need to decide, because you can't keep going to and fro. And so for me, the decision was easy because my 3 best friends played soccer. And so from that moment on, it was soccer or nothing else. And the fact that I got to hang out with these 3 guys every single day, we drove up to Tucson every other day, we competed every weekend. When we weren't in Tucson playing for TSA, we were down in Mexico playing against men. But for me, it was more than just soccer. I love being a goalie. I love playing soccer. But more than anything, I love hanging out with these guys. And so if it wasn't for Tim, Sean, and Miguel, there's no way that I could even have dreamt of being able to accomplish what I have, been able to take the steps that I have. And interestingly enough, one of the guys that I mentioned, Miguel, we went to college together. And so not only do you have these 4 kids from Sierra Vista 2 ended up going to the same Division I school on scholarship. And Miguel actually got drafted by FC Dallas before I got drafted. So you see, it was this group that ended up doing something so extraordinary. But I guess for me, it doesn't feel that way because we just love hanging out. And what do we love doing when we hang out? We love playing soccer. And so a huge part of my success is going to have to go back to that. So I want to give a shout out to Seth. Seth, how are you doing? You want to give me a wave? Just so I know you hear me. Great. Awesome. All right. So that's a little bit about the beginning of my story, and I'm willing to answer whatever questions you got for me. So please fire away, guys. Who's got control of this here?
You guys are more than welcome to start answering or asking questions whenever you're free.
I want to hear it too.
Okay.
How do I hear?
So who's speaking right now? Is this who's got a question? Raise your hand. I'll call on you and then unmute. Okay. Just raise your hand. All right.
Sure.
Well, hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. Let me call on you. Okay. All right. So Hayden, why don't you unmute? Hi, Hayden. How are you doing?
My question is, did you like the Red Bulls better or Miami?
In my life, playing at the New York Red Bulls, I mean, I still have so much pride to say that I played for the New York Red Bulls, to be a part of 3 teams that won the Supporters Shield, to make the playoffs every single year, to be one of their captains, to be a player that has set so many records for that franchise. But more than anything, just to be a part of that community gives me so much pride. And as I transition to this new chapter in my life, the same sort of attributes and characteristics I brought to my experience at New York, I bring to Inter. And a huge reason why I chose Inter when I was going through the free agency process is, even though there's other teams out there in the league that were interesting, they were offering me more money, the idea of going to a startup, being a part of a team that has a guy like David Beckham, just seemed like a great learning experience. And when I think about where I'm at in my career, one thing that has always held true since I was 11 years old is I genuinely believe that I can be a better goalkeeper today than I was yesterday. And so now, as I turn 36 next month, that could be a wild statement, but I would contend that it's not. Because even though my physical part of the game is probably peaked, there are so many aspects of my game that I can learn mentally, as a person, as a leader, as a player. And I felt like Inter was the place that was really going to challenge me the most. So I'm telling you right now, Hayden, I loved being in New York Red Bull. I loved being in Germany. And when I think about some of my soccer moments, the ones that are going to be the top, I promise you, are going to be with Sean, Tim, and Miguel. But then right underneath it is going to be the New York Red Bulls. But who knows? Maybe here at Inter Miami over the next couple of seasons, hopefully, we're going to create new memories. And who knows where that's going to stack up on there. But from what I've experienced so far, it's been an incredible experience. And that's not in any way to dismiss my experience at the New York Red Bulls, because that in and of itself was also very, very special. All right, go ahead, raise your hand for the next question. Is it Adahir Lopez? Can we unmute him, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
My question was, besides determination and your mentality going into the games, what else would you say you need to make it to the professional level?
It's a really good question. And it's a really good question for this audience. When I think about my upbringing in Sierra Vista, it wasn't as if I had the highest level of coaching, right? I mean, I grew up, if anyone's been to Sierra Vista, there's not much to talk about when you talk about Sierra Vista. And so I grew up with coaches that didn't have the pedigree as Dave Cosgrove and Todd Garlick. And going from 11 to 14, I wasn't necessarily exposed to that. And of course, I'm very grateful that at 14 on, I made that transition. And originally, I didn't want to. It was actually Tim and Sean who made that decision for me. They left Sierra Vista, and I thought, okay, now I got to go. But those first few years playing goalie, I didn't have a goalkeeper coach. I think that the guy that trained me for a little bit was like 78 years old. His name was Bernie Kappas. And so you guys are going to be exposed already to high level coaching, higher level coaching than I might have been exposed to. And yet the thing that you can't ever overlook is a desire to want to improve every single day. When I played with Tim, Sean, and Miguel, I would say on that hierarchy, I was the fourth player. And I really benefited that I wasn't the best of those guys. I always felt like I was chasing them. I was always chasing them. And eventually, because of that sort of built-in part of our relationship, it allowed me to continue to train each and every day. And I felt like I wasn't bringing much to the table, but I was able to compete against these guys. And I even fast forward it now, right? Because with the sort of self-quarantine that's going on, there's 3 guys that I'm training with every single day. And only because they live in the same community as me. Lee Wynn, AJ De La Garza, and Victor Ulloa. And these guys are talented. But more than anything, the only thing we're doing right now is running. And I'm a goalie, and I hate running. I've never liked running. I still don't like running. And yet these guys are running at such a crazy endurance level. And I don't necessarily think it's like an ego thing, but yeah, there's like some dignity and some pride. Like, I'm not going to let these guys smoke me. I'm not going to let these guys completely run me out the park. And so there's still that drive. And so I think for any young soccer player, no matter what your goals are, what it is that you want to do, there has to be a drive, the sort of drive that isn't requiring your mom and dad to say, hey, go outside and kick the ball against the wall. The sort of drive that isn't requiring you to go and do the things that you're supposed to do and then do more, right? So just to give you a little insight of what my day looked like when I was a little older than you guys, really, let's say my freshman year of high school, school would get out 1:50, I'd go home and I'd do my homework as quick as I could. And the reason I did that is because I wasn't allowed to leave the house and play soccer until my homework was done.
And do his homework.
So I would do that, and then I'd go meet Sean, and I'd go meet Tim, and I'd go meet Miguel, and we would just play. And we play, and we play, and we play. And we played with people that were older than us. We played people that were younger. We didn't care. We just played, and we played all day long. And that's something that we loved. And so this is what I really encourage you guys. Whether it's soccer or something else, find something that you love so that you're self-motivated, so that you don't have to have mom and dad telling you, you need to go do this, you need to go do this. And if you can apply that to something in that way, I guarantee it's going to take you to the next level. And then, of course, you need good things to work out. Like in my case, just to continue on that question, I then met Dave Cosgrove. From Dave Cosgrove, I met Todd Garlick. From Todd Garlick, I met Wolfgang. From Wolfgang, I met Bill Irwin at University of Portland. Like, I was very fortunate that I had people that not only were excellent teachers and coaches, but they believed in me. And that's a huge thing. But just really to answer your question, besides that, you have to have drive. And it's a sort of drive that isn't relying on mom and dad telling you to go do something. Next question. Raise your hand, please.
Yeah, we have Chase.
Okay, even better. You do it. That'd be great.
Chase, go ahead.
What is your pregame routine?
My pregame routine for the last 10, let's call it the last 8 years, has been the same thing. I wake up in the morning, I brunch with my family. I have 3 kids, a son who's 7, 2 girls, 5 and 3. So I'll wake up late, I'll brunch, and then after that, it's very much just lay low. Like I like to read. I usually read the Bible. I read just some sort of meditations, and then I just kind of relax. But then what really is important to me is after I do this every game day. I cut my hair. It's really easy. And I shave, and then after that, I really start to visualize. And the visualization is key because I start from the moment I leave my house. And the reason I do this is because I want to go through every single experience, because sometimes as you go through the experience, it doesn't end up the way that you want. So you redo it. But then when you really go through that experience, you've already been there. And so when you're dealing with those sort of emotions, that sort of stress, that sort of the butterflies, if you will, you can remind yourself you've already been here. And this is where the mind is very powerful. So after going from leaving my house to pulling up to the stadium, I know how I'm going to feel. So I walk myself through that feeling to get to equilibrium. And then as I get into the locker room, the way I put my clothes on, to the moment I get onto the field, the warm-ups, I think about the crowd. I think about where I'm at. I think about the way I'm going to catch the ball, the way I'm going to go through my movements. And then I think about going back into the locker room. I really, from the moment I leave my house into the moment it's done, I try to visualize every part of it. And the reason I do that is because try it. It's difficult. It's very difficult. But you can go through a 4-hour span in 10 minutes and you can do it right. But the reason I say it's difficult is because even when you visualize yourself doing something, there's enough in your brain, enough failure in your brain that you actually do it wrong. So you have to like replay it. I've seen enough goals during visualization that's happened in real life. So I got to replay it. What I've done differently so I can see myself being successful. And then the very last thing I do before I actually leave the house is I pray with my wife. And I've been doing that since we've been married. So that's my game day routine.
Next question. As a keeper, what are the top 3 things I should be working on right now during isolation? And that is from Kaysen the Great.
It's a good question, Casey. So especially with isolation or no isolation, you know who my first goalkeeper coach I said was this older guy, but my mom would wake up in the morning before I went to school and she'd like throw me the ball. Like she didn't know anything about soccer, right? Like for me, it was one of those things that I would just like harass her until she did it. And I think you can do the same thing. Go harass a parent, right? Go outside, have them just go through collapse diving, simple diving, working on your technique, because at this stage in your career, you just need as much repetition as possible. And I know you also need correct instruction, but I'm telling you more than anything, you just need repetition. And that's not just a goalie, that's for anyone. If you're in self-quarantine, go find a wall and kick the ball against the wall 1,000 times, working on your touch, transferring the ball from your right thigh to your left foot, working on your weak foot, working on the way that you receive the ball. These are things that even now I do. I'm going to give you guys a story. I'm in self-quarantine, and yesterday I broke into our stadium. Yeah, I climbed the wall. I walked past the security guard who pretended like he didn't see me, and I met one of the other goalies. And all we worked on in the dark, it was 6 a.m. The sun wasn't even up yet, but I needed to do goalkeeping. Like I couldn't do this running on the grass anymore. And so we got out there, and all we worked on was our technique. And so here I am, 36 years old, 14 years as a professional, played 4 years in college, was 8 years youth soccer in Southeastern Arizona. And yet all I'm working on is my technique in the dark, right? So I don't even think you need 3 things. If anything, just go out there, kick the ball against the wall, harass a parent to get a ball that you can just dive, and you just work on your technique. So, I mean, those are the things that I would suggest. Don't break into any stadiums. Don't break into anything, right? It was one of those things where don't tell me what you're doing, just whatever. But I needed it because I had imagined the same thing in Tucson and in Arizona. A lot of the parks are closed. I live in a very beautiful town, and there are parks everywhere, and you can't go there. As soon as you go into a park, there's sheriffs driving around, and they tell you to leave. So I felt like it was a necessary evil that needed to be done, and I may do it a few more times during self-quarantine.
All righty, go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question. All right, let's go with Jules. Go ahead and unmute you.
What is
There
your
you go.
best piece of advice for an aspiring goalkeeper?
So a little bit on what I said before, repetition, right? That's something that can't be overlooked. You have to get as many shots as possible. I mean, ask Seth's dad, Tim, how many shots I took. I literally take 500 shots, like until these guys couldn't kick anymore. And for me, that was fun. But the other part of that exercise wasn't that I took 500 shots. It's every time I conceded a goal, I brushed myself off, and I got back up again. And as a young goalkeeper, you need to understand that is a huge part of the mental part of it. You're going to get scored on. You need to understand that right now, Jules. You are going to get scored on. You are going to make mistakes, right? But if you're willing to accept that, it actually liberates you to just go and be what you need to be, right? So you need to get as many reps as possible, especially as a goalkeeper, because think about our training, right? Our training is for 90 minutes. You jump around, you get muddy, you get dusty, and then you go into a game in 9 minutes, you touch the ball 4 times, right? So the only way that you're going to be able to replicate those touches, of course, is in group. But even before you get there, you have to get yourself ready for those 4 touches. So if you can find anyone, if you can find your Sean, Tim, and Miguel, go find them. Because as a goalie, you need people. You can't do it just by yourself. You need those guys to shoot on you. but don't get discouraged. Understand that you're going to get scored on. That's part of it. But one thing that a goalkeeper really needs is to be courageous. And courage isn't fearless. It's actually, it runs that line, but it's the next level. It's acting in spite of fear, right? You might be afraid that you make a mistake. You might be afraid that you're going to give up a goal. But by being courageous, now you're greater than your fear, right? It's okay to have fears. That's normal. That's part of being a human being. But as a goalkeeper, if you want to go to the next level, you have to overcome that by speaking truth into your game and being courageous. Understand that, accept that. And if you're able to do that with the amount of reps that you get and just being courageous, getting back up and believing in yourself, you're going to advance. And I mean, that's really the best advice I can give you. Just food for thought here. My first goalkeeper coach came into the picture when I was 16 years old. His name was Chris Birmingham. All right. So if any of you guys know who Chris Birmingham, that was my first exposure to goalkeeping training. And then when I went to the University of Portland, I felt like I met the most influential person in my life when it came to soccer, and that was Bill Irwin. I mean, this guy's like, it's like Moses reading the Torah. This guy, when he talks about goalkeeping, it's incredible. He trained Casey Keller, he trained me, and I mean, he's incredible. But just so you know, Jules, my first formal goalkeeping training came when I was 16 years old.
All righty. Okay, we have Olivia.
What was your worst injury and how did you overcome it?
My worst injury actually had nothing to do with soccer. I was playing soccer in Colorado for the summer in this league called PDL. It's what college players did in the summer to stay fit. But in order to make money, I was painting houses. And so one of my teammates thought it'd be funny for them to take the ladder. I was on the roof of the house and they took the ladder. And I was like, whatever, I don't need it. Like, I'll get off this anyways. And I jumped and I ended up landing on my backside and I fractured part of my hip. So that ended up affecting my career because I couldn't play for a while. But fortuitously, what ended up happening is there was a Vioxx scare. It was an anti-inflammatory drug way back in the day that really created a window for players to use other stronger medication. And so I would use that medication. I got through the season, but as soon as the season was done, they shut me down for 8 months because we had to heal the fracture in my hip. But that's about it. I've been very fortunate. I mean, I have a partial tear in my ACL. I did that 2 years ago. David mentioned that I have the record for the most consecutive games played, and it was actually that injury that ended the streak. I played almost 6 seasons consecutively without missing a minute. And it was when I tore my ACL that I had to pause. But we never got it repaired. I never got surgery. It's actually still torn. But I'm at the point in my career where if I got surgery, it put me out too long. So I'm able to function without it. But I mean, I've been very fortunate. I haven't had too many significant injuries. When I was younger and I was your guys' age, I had like different things with growth spurts. Like my Achilles would get really sore and I had some shoulder things going on, but that just had to do with, I think, growing.
All right, we have Sebastian with a question.
What team did you play for teams did you play for in middle school?
So in middle school is when I really started playing soccer. So it was in 6th grade. I played with these guys that I mentioned, Tim and Sean. We played for Rolling Thunder in Sierra Vista, and we were pretty decent. We would rough up some Tucson teams, played against CDO, and I think it was Arsenal at the time, and who else? Come on, Dave, help me out. What were the other teams? There was CDO, maybe there was like a Sereno team.
Maybe, was it the Top Guns? Santan Top Guns?
We played against Santan. Those are the Phoenix teams, right? Like, is Santan Tucson or Phoenix?
It was a Phoenix.
Yeah. So coming from Sierra Vista, we mostly played against Tucson teams. The only times that we'd play against Phoenix teams is, the occasional tournament. When your name is the Rolling Thunder, they don't really invite you to the top tournaments. But nonetheless, in the Fort Lowell shootout, we probably played a Phoenix team, and then of course in State Cup. But during middle school, I was still playing baseball, and even though soccer was very interesting to me at the time, like I was still very focused on baseball, and it was not probably until my 8th grade season when I tried out for an ODP team, because Sean tried out for ODP. And the reason I made the team, which is crazy, is because the top goalkeeper of the state, his name is AJ Robles. We actually played together in club. He forgot his goalie gloves. And the thing that worked out great for me is the coach that year was not from Arizona. He's this English dude. And even though if he would have been from Arizona, he'd have some context to who AJ was and how good he was. He just thought, okay, this kid didn't bring his goalie gloves, so we're going to take the other Robles. And it actually ended up catapulting my career, because from there I made the ODP team. From the ODP team, I made the regional ODP team. And then from the regional ODP team, I was always involved in like the national team pools. And that point, it really started to get serious. And at that point, it was like, okay, like now I have to consider how much I put into my soccer. But then the other part is my relationships with these guys was really starting to get strong, and we started to play a lot. So to answer your question, I didn't play for any team in Tucson or in Phoenix. I played for a team in Sierra Vista called the Rolling Thunder. All right, so actually on this chat, I can see a few questions here. So Leif asked me, what are some drills you can do with a tiny amount of space? Yeah, I think when you consider what you can do inside, you got to be careful because you don't want to break any lamps. My kids kick inside like I don't care. They've broken a lot of stuff. And what's really nice is I live in Florida now, so we have these hurricane impact windows. And so my 7-year-old kid, he's kicking the ball against the wall hard all the time, every day, all day. And he hits these windows and it doesn't do anything. I wouldn't recommend that for you guys. And the other thing is, because we just moved here, there's like big open spaces in our house. So he's able to take advantage of that. But I really think that you guys need to find a wall. It's one of the best things that you can do is just kick I remember watching a documentary on Zinedine Zidane, and he talked about when he was at the academy and he was learning, he said his best friend was the wall. So if it was good enough for Zinedine Zidane, who ended up being one of the greatest players in the history of soccer, I think it'd be good enough for you guys. All right, so another one is, how did you get your confidence doing goalkeeping? That's a really good question, actually, because I'll admit I have my insecurities. I have my doubts. I have my schizophrenic moments where I feel like everything's falling apart. And yet I'd have to say that a lot of my confidence comes from for some of the truths that I remember in my journey. So whenever things aren't really going well, I go back to some of the key moments in my journey, my soccer journey in my life, and what I relied on. I relied heavily on my faith. I relied heavily on my family. I spent a lot of time praying, spent a lot of time relating with people that are close to me and getting their advice. But to answer that question in a different way, what took my game to the next level when I was 28 years old is I started working with 2 sports psychologists. One was licensed and the other one was my father-in-law. And what these guys taught me is the ability to identify truths. And this is really important, especially as a young player, is because you're going to deal with a lot of disappointments and you're going to deal with a lot of setbacks and failures. And yet it's the way that you react to those situations that's going to allow you to grow as a person and as a player. But they leave scars, right? And those scars a lot of times are mental. And if you're not able to deal with those mental scars, then you can't identify what's true. So even now, every once in a while, when things aren't really going my way, I stand in front of a mirror and I remind myself that I'm a good goalkeeper. And I know that may sound tacky, but you need that truth sort of hammered back into your mind, because every person has thousands of thoughts every minute, right? Doesn't matter if you're 8 years old or if you're 88 years old. You have a ton of thoughts going through your head. And a lot of times those thoughts are just hogwash. They're things that don't even need to be there. But when you're trying to focus on something, a lot of those thoughts sometimes aren't true. And so what I was able to figure out is what's true. And I'm going to use an anecdote. So you guys know what counterfeit money is? Well, there's FBI agents who their job is to find out where or to find counterfeit money. And the way they do that is they don't study all the different types of counterfeits. They study the actual dollar. They know the way that it feels, the way that it smells, the way that it looks, every detail about it. So that whenever they come across something that doesn't look like it, feel like it, smell like it, they know it's counterfeit, right? So instead of going through all the thousands of different counterfeits that are out there, they know the true dollar. And so the same thing is going to be about yourself. If you know what's true, so I have to remind myself, I am a good goalkeeper. I'm a goalkeeper that's able to make a difference. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. Then anything that's counter to that, I know as a half truth and I throw it away. And so what's happened is I become more confident in who I am. I'm more confident in my ability. And then with each step that I take, you just gain in confidence. But every once in a while, you need to remind yourself that. And fortunately, I surround myself with really good people. Did you win any state championships? We lost the state championship 5 years in a row in either the semis or the final. What's crazy about it is we lost to the same team, right? Or no, we lost to the same teams, but it was the same team in our age group who won for 6 years. And then they won regionals 4 times and they won nationals twice. Unfortunately, we were the same year as them. But the pride that I take from that experience is on my team that year, 84s, we might not have ever won a state championship, but we had 11 guys go on to play the next level of soccer. And from those 11, 5 went to D1 schools, right? So that team that won 5 or 6 straight championships had 1 guy. So I think taking away from it, and the crazy thing is I still have not won a championship, which is like a sad thing to say. I have not won a championship in my life. Right? I haven't won any state championships. I haven't won any regional championships. I didn't win the conference championship when I was in college. They actually, the year I got there, they had just won the conference championship, and then the year I left, they won the conference championship. I didn't win a national championship, and I've yet to win the MLS Cup. I've won the Supporters Shield 3 times, but in my mind, like MLS Cup is the thing. And so that's what fuels me. That's what fuels me. I mean, it's a scary thought to think in a few years I'm not playing anymore. But for the longest time, I thought my career would be invalidated if I never won. Fortunately, my mindset has changed a lot because of my wife. But yeah, sadly enough, I'm 35 going on 36. I have not won a single championship. It's sad to say. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to represent Southeastern Arizona. So hopefully here in South Florida, we can win an MLS Cup so I can make you guys proud. All right, you said that Miguel got drafted to FC Dallas. Oh, hold on. FC Dallas. What happened to him? Does he still play soccer? So Miguel is also from Sierra Vista. He actually grew up on Fort Huachuca. And the reason Sierra Vista is there is because it supports a military base. That's the reason I moved there. That's the reason Tim moved there. That's the reason Sean moved there. That's the reason we're all there is because of a military base. And he went on to college at the University of Portland. He got drafted by FC Dallas. And then he started getting hurt. He dealt with some serious knee injuries, his meniscus. He tore his meniscus a few times. He had several surgeries. And then it sort of derailed his career. But now he's coaching. He coached at the University of Portland briefly, and now he's coaching at New Mexico State on the women's side. If you didn't play goalie, what position you'd play? I'd be a shortstop for a Major League Baseball team. I have not played any other position. Every once in a while when I was in club, because I mentioned we had this other guy named AJ Robles who was really good. He was really, really good. He went on to play at UAB. And, I mean, that just speaks to our team. Like, we had 1 guy go to St. Mary's. We had 2 guys go to Portland. We had 2 guys go to UAB. Dave, I'm missing. 6 guys went to Pima Community and were competitive. And we had a really, really good team. It's so sad that we didn't win State Cup. But yeah, I mean, if I wasn't playing goalie, then I probably would have been still playing baseball, to answer that question. What was your best save? I would say I'm not going to say my best save. I think if you want to be the judge of that, go YouTube me. There's a lot of highlights that you can watch. My most important save, I think, was in 2015. We were playing the last game of the regular season. We were neck and neck with FC Dallas for the Supporter Shield. And 8 minutes into the game, Chicago Fire had a one-on-one, and I ended up saving it. And you could tell that everyone was very nervy going into that game because we were playing at the same time. If we lost and Dallas won, we would have lost the Shield. If we won, we would have won it also. You could tell there's a lot of tension there. And yet that's a huge part about being a goalkeeper is I've never been the goalkeeper that was relied on to make 10 saves in a game or be the most spectacular when it comes to showing athleticism, making brilliant saves left and right. But I think I've made a career because I've been a consistent goalkeeper that in the biggest moments have come up big to the point that you don't even remember the moment anymore because something transpired later that really caused the game to go a certain way. But then when you go back to the beginning of the game or the middle of the game, there was a save that I made that sort of wasn't spectacular, but was important. And it's because of that save, my team stayed in the game and we could have won the game. And so it's the same thing in this. In 2015, I forget who it was. He was in wide open. I ended up making the save, and then we ended up winning the game 2-1. So I think that's really a question. I actually haven't really thought about that. Okay, this thing is scrolling fast. What is the most important thing for a goalkeeper to have with his teammates, coaches at the next level, be it trust, communication, etc.? I think any goalkeeper, there's a lot of things. You need to be able to communicate well. You need to be able to have a good presence in the box. But I think more than anything is it goes back to what I just said. In the biggest moments, you have to be bigger than the moment. And I'm not saying that you have to even make this like upper V, spectacular, full stretch save. It's just in a moment that is pivotal. Like if they score, it changes the entire trajectory of the game. It changes the complexion of the match. That goalkeeper who can be counted on in that moment and be consistent time and time again is probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest attributes that a goalkeeper can have. One of the most important attributes that a goalkeeper can have is that consistency. Would you want to go farther in soccer, like bigger than MLS? That's a really, really interesting question. And I'm going to stand on my soapbox here for a little bit. So in 2007, I got drafted out of college by DC United, but the league was in a completely different place. When I was your guys' age, I could not watch soccer on TV. The only time you would ever be able to find soccer on TV was when the U.S. men's national team was playing a qualifier or was in the World Cup. All right. So it was that rare. And yet the league came in 1996. And I don't know if you guys watched on Monday some of the original games. And yeah, the quality wasn't there. But I mean, it was a brand new league. It was a startup. But the problem was 11 years later, they still didn't know where they were going. And the thing that changed everything about this league was actually David Beckham. The moment David Beckham came to this league, it not only saved the league, but it changed the entire trajectory of the league. Well, I got drafted before David Beckham, right? So even though it was the same year, 2007, it was before he showed up. So at that point, when I got drafted by DC United, my first contract offer was for $10,900 for the year, $10,900. And so when I had an opportunity to go to Germany, for financial reasons, there was nothing holding me back. But I also thought, I'm not married, I don't have any kids, I'm young, I can go and try to make it happen. And to my great fortune, it actually worked out really well. I got to spend 6 very meaningful seasons in Germany. I got to experience a different part of the world. I learned a new language. And it's a type of experience that has allowed me to continue to be the player and the person that I am today. But where I'm going with this is where the league is now is incredible. And I remember thinking this when I came in 2012. My very first game was an away game with the New York Robles, was an away game. I was sitting on the bench at Sporting Kansas City. And this stadium was full and it was packed and it was electric being in the stadium. And what's happened more and more is this is the case for a lot of places in this country. And so the reason I bring this up is because you guys are the next generation. Whether it's with the women's league and the women's national team or the men's league, MLS and the men's national team, you guys are going to be the ones, whether it's players, whether it's staff, whether it's coaches, whether it's just supporters that are going to take this league to the next level, a level that is yet to see. And so when you say, would I want to go bigger? I'm exactly where I want to be. I think there isn't a more exciting place to be in soccer right now than in Major League Soccer. The potential and where it's going is incredible. And with the fact that the World Cup is coming to this country in 2026, I think it's going to be another launching point. And so I think you guys are going to get to experience some amazing things. We're already seeing players a little older than you in the generation behind me that are just world beaters. Tyler Adams, Christian Pulisic, Josh Sargent, to name a few, Weston McKennie, right? These are guys that you guys can look to. The guys that I look to is like Tony Miola. He was doing like Broadway and trying out for the Jets, right? Like it was a completely different experience. And yet if it wasn't for the Tony Miolos in the world, I wouldn't be here. And now that I'm here, I think it's a very important message to let you guys know that you guys are the ones that are next. And by being the ones that are next, you have to understand that you have more opportunities than ever before. But you guys have to seize the opportunities. And it starts with kicking the ball against the wall. It starts by getting back up and brushing the dirt off yourself and saying, I can do this. And it starts with harassing your parents to go outside and kick the ball with you. All right, what are your plans if and when you ever retire? Oh, I'm retiring. It's not a if, it's a when. So I'm 35 years old right now, but I turn 36 next month. I'm the oldest guy on my team. I've been the oldest guy on the last couple teams. So it's not just like a one-off now. It's actually like the theme of my life. But I've been very fortunate to be able to play 14 seasons, to be able to experience what I have. And now as a guy who's experienced a lot in the game, I feel like I have a lot to give back to the game. And so I would like, in whatever way, shape, or form, to do that at the domestic level. And I'm not necessarily sure what that means, whether it's in the front office of some team, working for the league, or doing something that's not on my radar yet. I absolutely want to stay in soccer because I think the future of soccer in this country is incredibly bright, and there's going to be a lot of employment opportunities. As a goalie, how lonely can you be? How do you connect with your team? So that's actually a really, really good question for goalkeepers. The way that I stay connected is I talk. And sometimes it's not even the right information, but the reason I talk is because then my mind is engaged. And if my mind is engaged, it's a lot easier to be involved, even though the ball is at the other end of the field. And so that's the simplest way to answer that question is, as a goalie, you have to talk. And I know as a young goalkeeper, that is one of the most difficult things that a coach will ask of you is to talk, right? It's just like, it's so counter to what it is that you want to do. But if you want to minimize mistakes, you have to stay engaged. If you want to make big saves, you have to stay engaged. And one of the easiest ways to stay engaged is to talk. And sometimes you're talking to yourself, but talk about what's going on the field, right? Because then your mind is engaged. And when your mind is engaged, you're ready to make those big plays. What were the main players that you looked up to in your youth? So the player I looked up to the most, the two players I looked up to the most were goalies, Casey Keller and Tony Miola. I ended up meeting Tony Miola when I moved to New Jersey, and I trained with him quite a bit. And it was kind of surreal because I think to a lot of people that seems kind of tacky, but from a kid from Sierra Vista, that's unreal. I even remember I've met a lot of famous people, and being in New York, that gave you an opportunity. Being a professional, that gave you an opportunity to be famous. And the spectrum is broad. I mean, from actors to politicians to other athletes to just Fortune 500 people. I've met a lot of people. And yet somehow I've kept my cool with most of them. And Tony Miola, like, I got geeked out. And the reason I got geeked out is because even now, if you go to my house in Sierra Vista, my parents' house, on my dresser is a photo of Tony Miola that he signed. And the person who got that signature was Sean, this kid that I was talking about. He went to a game in Phoenix where the men's national team was playing, and he went to the game, and afterwards he got a signature of Tony Miola to give to me on my birthday because that was what I was exposed to. And then eventually Casey Keller became the goalkeeper. And the reason I went to the University of Portland, a huge reason why I went to the University of Portland, is because that's where Casey Keller went. And then there's another guy. So then because I went to that university during spring break, I flew out to Germany. I met Casey. I lived with him in his castle. I got to train with him. And then eventually we compete against each other. And now we still have a professional relationship. So those are the two guys. And then strangely enough, when I went to college, the other player I really looked up to because he was incredible is Thierry Henry. And now Thierry Henry blows up my phone. So it's like, it's kind of crazy, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm still a kid from Sierra Vista, right? I'm turning 36, but when I think about my journey and where I'm at right now, those are my favorite moments. My favorite moments driving out with these three clowns to Tucson for Tucson United soccer training with Dave Cosgrove, and the long road trips that we had in 15-passenger vans up to San Diego and Los Angeles and wherever else we had to go for regionals. Those to me are my favorite moments still. And it's not even close, right? Like when I think about those three guys and the camaraderie that we had and the relationship we had, it was so much more than soccer, but it's what allowed me to play soccer at a high level. And now I sent a joke to some of my friends the other day. Like at the same time, Thierry Henry and David Beckham had texted me. And so on my phone, I pick up my phone, and right there on the screen, it says message from Thierry Henry, iMessage, David Beckham, iMessage, mom. And I screenshot that and I sent that to my friends. I was like, which one did I answer first? Obviously my mom. David Beckham and Thierry Henry, they can wait. Mom's always number one. Okay, let me answer a couple more here. When you retire, will you go back to Sierra Vista? An emphatic no. I don't think I'm going back to Sierra Vista. I love going back to Sierra Vista for Christmas, and I go back every Christmas. I married a girl from Sierra Vista, and crazy enough, she lives across the street from me. So when we go back to Sierra Vista for Christmas, it's very easy to visit both sets of parents because they live across the street from each other. It's amazing. We don't have to split time. The only thing that we split is if we're there for 8 days, 4 of the nights we stay at one house, then we roll our suitcases across the street and we stay 4 nights at the other. But I love Sierra Vista, and there's a lot of great memories there. My parents still live there. Her parents still live there. But I just don't feel like there's too much for what I want to do next that I'd go back to Sierra Vista. Do I still keep in touch with Sean, Tim, and Miguel? I keep in touch with Tim, Miguel sporadically, and sadly enough, I haven't heard from Sean for a while. Yeah, that's really too bad. I mean, it's actually probably been a couple of years since I've talked to Sean. I think every once in a while, like, I'll get a message. He's really good on my birthday, sends a message. But then when I'm like, I try to continue the conversation, he's just always been bad with the phone. Always been bad with the phone. He just disappears. What do you think about the process of getting to the next level, college, professional, through DA or club soccer? I spoke earlier about opportunities, and I feel that there are more opportunities for the youth of Southern Arizona than ever before. And I'm still not completely like, I don't understand the nuances of DA yet and club soccer, because for me, club soccer was very linear. You played club soccer, on the side there was ODP, and then from there you still played high school soccer. Like, that was still a thing back then. And then you go to college, hopefully. But now it just seems like there's so many more opportunities, so much so that it might even get confusing. But I think for any young player, the most important thing is to get good instruction and to play. Like, those are things that you can't replicate. And the reason I say that is because maybe you're 13 years old and you're playing for the top team possible, but you're not playing a lot. I think you really need to consider finding another opportunity to play, and while still being exposed to top level coaching, right? Because the only way that you're going to grow and develop is you need playing time. I was very fortunate in a way that I think part of the reason why my career has been able to go the way it has, and my body has endured the way that it has, is because there was another good goalie on the team. I didn't play all the time. It kind of sucked, but it was every other game. And they just split it right down the middle. If we had 4 games, I played 2 and AJ played 2, and there were no ifs, ands, buts about it. But I also think it spared me from a lot of things. And now I'm turning 36 and I feel great. And yeah, I mean, just to answer that question, I don't have the best answer. The only thing I can say for any young aspiring players, going back to the very beginning of this conversation, you have to be training. And you have to be training when no one is looking. You have to be training when No coach is asking you to do something. You just go out there. You have to be obsessed with it. Talking to Tyler, like I was teammates with Tyler. This kid he's just a ball of energy. And he never wanted to be inside. He never wanted to play video games. He just was outside kicking the ball against the wall. The wall, see? There you go. Tyler Adams, playing for Red Bull Leipzig, the future of our men's national team, one of the best players to come through the developmental system of New York Red Bulls. And yet the thing he alluded to was he kicked the ball against the wall. There's a common theme here, right? And so I think just to answer that question, going back to it is you need playing time to develop, but you need good coaching. What do you eat to get prepared for a game or in between games? I'm a goalie. I probably haven't been the best when it comes to watching myself. Now, as I'm aging, I'm thinking about it. I definitely the only fast food I eat these days is the occasional Chick-fil-A. But for the most part, my wife is really good about preparing meals. And I mean, I don't put too much into it. I understand the benefits to it. But the reason I don't put too much into it is because I remember watching Thierry. So at 28 years old, I was sort of doing that thing where I watched everything I ate. I was very like sort of regimented and disciplined. And then here I'm sitting with one of maybe the top 10 greatest soccer player ever. The guy didn't go to the gym. He ate whatever he wanted, and he trained like an animal, right? So I remember him several times saying that it's all up here. It's all up here. It's all up here. And I think there's wisdom to that, but I also think that there is wisdom to being disciplined and being in the gym and eating the right things. But don't go crazy about it. Like that shouldn't be what you're spending most of your time counting your calories or your workout sessions. What you need to be doing is you need to be playing soccer. So guys, it's close to 10. I'm going to take a couple more questions and then I think we're going to call it a night because I'm in Florida here, so it's 3 hours ahead of you guys. But hold on a sec. So I feel like I answered a lot of this. Real quickly, do you play ECNL? No, it was just club soccer back then. How long were you out when you broke your hip? 8 months. Let's end with this. The guy who's there from the very beginning. Dave, why don't you ask me a question?
Well, everybody took all my good questions. Like I heard the rumor you were coming back and coach in Tucson, but I guess that's true.
Who knows? Anything's possible.
I guess maybe I'd ask you, how much do you follow the professional leagues across the world, and how much do you sit down and watch a game as a fan, or do you sit down and watch it as a player and analyze what the goalkeepers do, how they do things, and do you actually have enough time to sit down and watch games?
I'll try to answer all those in parts. Do I have enough time to watch games? I used to watch a lot of soccer. Now with 3 kids, I have to balance it out. So that means if I had to prioritize what I watch MLS. Whatever games are on for MLS, I watch that because these are guys that I'm playing against, so I want to know their tendencies. But I'm also like, as the quality continues to get better and better, they're good games to watch. And then second would be Prem, and that's because I could wake up in the morning and watch it. But so that's that. Like I definitely make a point to watch MLS because 1, that's my league, and 2, those are the guys I go up against. When I watch it, I try to just enjoy the game. I definitely, when I'm sitting there, I sit there with my son who he eats this stuff up. Like it's incredible. He just sits there with me and he watches these games, and I'll just be watching. Even when my coaches send me training video, so we have cameras everywhere. And so especially when we train, I like to watch the video from training. I like to be very analytical and evaluate and be very critical of the things I do. And so when I watch that, he sits there and he just watches it with me. Even though it's boring, it's like goalkeeping stuff. He just sits there and watches it. So that probably takes up the most of it. If I'm not watching MLS, then I'm watching my videos from training. But when I am watching, I try to detach and I just try to enjoy the game the way that it is. I will share this with you guys. I am just not a soccer mind. I am very binary, and I think as a goalkeeper that is useful, but I'm not the guy that can just sit there and watch soccer and watch all the tactics and the formations. We do Zoom meetings every day now that this is becoming a thing in self-quarantine with our team at 10 a.m. And I'm doing everything I can to like not nod off. Like all we're doing is watching these plays and trying to be better. And that's fine. That's really fine. But man, I just don't have that soccer mind. And so as I'm trying to develop it, I think a coaching course would be very beneficial for me because then I'll watch the game a different way. But I enjoy just watching soccer. And that's not something I could have said when I was younger. When I was younger, it wasn't available, so there was no soccer to watch. And then when it was available, it was on Fox Soccer Channel, and it was the Premier League at 3 a.m. And so I'd wake up with my college teammates to go watch Arsenal or Manchester United play at 3 a.m. But I didn't love the game so much that I could stay up. I'd fall back asleep. So that's sort of how I watched soccer when I was younger. But you guys have such an incredible opportunity now to watch any league in the world. It's amazing. Well, except not right now. You guys can't watch anything right now. But when soccer is on, you guys can watch any league. So, guys, I hope that was useful. I hope that you guys enjoyed that, and thank you for spending an hour with me. And best of luck to you guys. Please, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and continue to stay inside, please.
Luis, I know your time is very valuable, and you talk about opportunities. I think one of the great opportunities we can provide as a youth club is to put somebody like you in front of them and to hear your story. And it's so relatable to some of these kids growing up in Tucson. So we're very grateful for your time. It's, the first time we Zoom meeting, obviously we've done a lot. It's going to be awful hard to top the star power of the first Zoom meeting we've had. But we really do appreciate it. And of course, Luis, please say hi to your family and stay safe.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thanks for hanging out tonight.
All right. Have a great. Thank you, everybody,
guys.
for tuning in. I think we had over 6 people.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. All right, guys. Take care.